The Purple Line is a community podcast, bringing you in-depth conversation with diverse leaders in the public and private sectors. Whether you're a student looking to gather advice or a professional tuning in for valuable resources, our dynamic programming provides tips for all ages and backgrounds. I'm your host, Emily Benavides, and this is The Purple Line. Thank you so much for joining us on the Purple Line podcast. Today's guest is Gabby Boffelli. She is the 2017 recipient of the Vermilion Award and the 2023 recipient of the Chile Ambassador Award, and currently serves as Chief of Staff to Congresswoman Jenniffer González-Colón of Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and really it's an honor to partner with Chile and to be here in this podcast.
So, Gabby, can you just start at the beginning for us? I know you are a proud Nicaraguan, and you attended university in both Nicaragua and in Florida, but just start at the beginning. Tell us about how life started for you and um, through attending university in both countries.
So both my friends are Nicaraguan. They moved to the United States in the 1980s. So I was born in Miami, and when I was 4 years old, I moved to Nicaragua. So I went through school there, and then started college there. I was blessed enough to be able to attend an American university in Nicaragua, where I started the business administration major, and I was there for maybe 2.5 years. And then based on the political situation in Nicaragua, my family decided to move back to Miami. So I would say probably the biggest difference for me was in Nicaragua, I lived on campus. All I had to worry about was attending school and college life. And when I moved to Miami, well, things were a little bit different, right? I was living with my parents. I attended classes, and then I was working at a restaurant, trying to make some money, right? I mean, transportation in Miami, distances are long, so I had to, get a car and kind of, manage that. And then later on, I was also doing an internship. So I think that to me prepared me for my eventual role here in DC. That experience of having to multitask and take care of several things. Right now, you have bills. You have to work. You have to find the time to study. And then the other difference for me was I had my schoolmates in Nicaragua, from high school and all that. And when I moved to Miami, I didn't really know anybody. All my friends were from my work in the restaurant, and a few friends that I made in the different classes. It's and everybody's kind of like on the same situation, right? Everybody's like, okay, I'm here for class, and then if I have time to do something extracurricular, then we'll do it. But everybody's kind of like on the same boat. So trying to establish those relationships and creating those friendships was also like very important, I guess, to what eventually led to my life here in DC. Getting to know people, getting to be involved in organizations like Chile. So I would say that those were probably the biggest two differences from being in school here and being in school in Florida.
Great. So you said your family moved from Nicaragua to Miami on two separate occasions, and because of the political situation. Can you talk to us about what those experiences with like the political influence of having to make that kind of decision has impacted your view on like politics and liberty and security?
it had everything to do with that. Having been in that experience. I mean, I had heard from my parents, the challenges that they faced in the 80s, when Ortega uh, became the president of Nicaragua. My family, they lost their businesses, they lost land, they were taken from them, and my grandmother is until this day still fighting some of those injustices. So that was a reality. That was part of the history. But throughout my life there, we were, Nicaragua was pretty democratic, in the sense that when my parents decided to move back was because there was a change in government. Violeta Gabriella Chamorro had become president in the 1990s based on the influence of the United States and international pressure for Ortega to hold elections. So that transition happened, and I would say, I was a young kid, pretty, didn't really think much of it. I knew there was a history, and it wasn't until we would see Ortega every 5 years running for president again, I'm running for president again, I'm running for president again. And then eventually what led him to win the election was he made a public apology and said, I'm sorry what I did in the 80s. I've changed. Then the other party kind of split the vote, and then Ortega won by 36% of the vote. And the other parties got roughly, 30 something. So that just brought me to the realization that having, to come here, having my parents say, we're not going to go through this again, selling our house and our properties because we didn't want to risk them being stolen. So that experience really just showed me how fragile our world really is. Having to change my life to move to the United States when I was 20 years old, it's something that I didn't really expect. Like, I would come to the U.S. to see my cousins and my aunts and uncles, the ones who stayed here. But it just showed to me that, you can't take anything for granted, right? Like, I thought that, I would finish school there and, that I would continue my life in Nicaragua. Didn't really think much of it at the time. But then, having gone through that experience and having seen like all the systematic steps that Daniel Ortega took in order to gain power again, meant, that we're just in a situation that, these things can happen at any time. I obviously knew about, Cuba, Venezuela, all those kind of countries that had, similar situations with dictators. But then when I was, when we made the decision to move to the United States, that just kind of, changed everything for me. Like I was saying earlier, with having to let go of friends, having to let go of the life that you knew, to then kind of start all over again in a way. So I value the freedom that we have now in the United States. The the importance of democratic institutions, and being able to strengthen them, like both here and abroad. That has stuck with me, being more in tune with also human rights. That is something that Ortega has now started talking, that he started. I mean, the election was in 2006. I'm sorry. We're almost at 20 years since he's been in power, and he has made changes to the constitution so that he's elected indefinitely, that kind of thing. So it makes you appreciate where you are now. Most of my friends, my high school friends, they moved. There's about 1 million Nicaraguans who have left the country in the past 4 years. In Costa Rica, some are in Canada, others in Europe. So they have moved around the world.
So, having experienced that, what was it like to make the transition to work on Capitol Hill, the pillar of democracy in the United States, and working for someone like, former Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen?
Yeah, I know. I was I was very blessed to have the opportunity to meet Ileana when I was living in Miami. And I admire her being, I still admire her, but at the time,
We all do.
yes, at the time, she's a powerful force in, because her family also went through a similar experience, right? And she had to flee Cuba at a very young age. So that kind of similar story meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I admired her, followed her, became more interested in what was going on around me in Miami. We're a melting pot. I met people from Venezuela, Cuba, Colombia, from everywhere. And, just seeing how we all kind of share similar situations was important to me. And that's kind of where I decided to be more interested in what was going on. How can I contribute? How can I make sure that these shared experiences, more of like a group where we can all kind of agree on things? Like, how can we change what's going on? How can we bring awareness? Because I think like Nicaragua having had that experience in the 80s, then people kind of forgot. And then you suddenly start, this dictator came back. And people didn't really know or realize what that meant, right? So, I mean, I knew because I lived it, but many people around me didn't. So, it's a lot of like educating people. And that's kind of, I guess, got me interested in international relations.
So when you worked for Ileana, she was the chairwoman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Can you tell us, what was your first job in her office?
So I started as an intern. I started as an intern in Miami while I was still finishing school. And then I graduated, and thankfully there was an opening here in DC. And I made the move to DC in 2011 as a staff assistant, which is the bottom. Like after an internship, that's like the next, like that's the first, I guess, paid job in a congressional office, right? So you start at the very bottom, but to me, it was an honor and a privilege to be working for the chairwoman, and to be working for my district. So I made the move here, and as a staff assistant, you kind of everything gets, up to you. So from doing capital tours to managing the internship program to driving the Congresswoman around to events, answering phone calls, all that kind of administrative, but very key to a congressional office. When people walk into the door, the first thing they see is you, right? So you're the face of the office, greeting all the visitors that come in. Because she was chair at the time, we received all these dignitaries, ambassadors, King Abdullah of Jordan. We have all these very high level meetings. So to me, that was a really big honor. She would also have some of these VIPs, I guess, testifying committees. Like we had Richard Gere. That was one that was surreal to have Richard Gere, that I would only see him in movie, and he's advocating for the Tibet people. That was a cause that Ileana was very close with. So I started as a staff assistant. On the Hill, things are very fast paced. People are often moving. They go to law school, or they, get to another job or move back home. So I quickly rose through the ranks, as staff assistant. Then I became legislative correspondent. That's when I started handling legislative issues. Then I became a legislative assistant, then a senior legislative assistant, and then legislative director at the end. I was legislative director for, I think, 2.5 years. So we were doing appropriations, handling all sorts of like legislative matters. And then I was offered the opportunity to become a professional staff member as well with the Foreign Affairs Committee. So I was dual hatting between those two things.
Wow, yeah. Keeping busy. So now you've moved all the way up the ladder. You're chief of staff
Yes.
to a sitting member of Congress. And I know all of Chile is very proud of you. But can you just tell us what it's like to have really been so successful in Capitol Hill that you're now the chief of staff, that you get to advise a sitting member of Congress?
Yes. So the chief of staff role is, yeah, I guess in the progression of things, that would have been my next position. Um, it's very different than I thought. That I thought it would be, just because when you are in the legislative role, you're more into, you have your set of issues and you do a deep dive on those issues, and that's your portfolio. But as chief of staff, you kind of have to know a little bit about everything. And you got to manage the political side as well. So I think, and you are in between the staff and the member. You are that person, the gatekeeper, right? So you want to make sure that I have an open door policy, and my staff can come and talk to me at any time, at any point, about anything. So that's been rewarding, because I feel like I'm able to advise them based on my experience and how I see things, and also advise the Congresswoman on that. One of the things is, you know, the the Congresswoman, and I think this is, this is for all members. They really trust you in what, and they trust that you are going to tell them what is good for them. Uh, Playing both sides, right? Sometimes you have to make sure that you give them, the pros and the cons, and they have to make the decision. But you can guide them there. So it's been very rewarding. I've been a chief of staff for 5.5 years. I am very thankful to Congresswoman González-Colón for affording me this opportunity, especially not being Puerto Rican, and having to learn all the different policies and politics that go into Puerto Rico, right? Not every district is different, but it's been very rewarding, and yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
So, what is the work environment like on Capitol Hill? Like, what's your day to day over being that gatekeeper between the staff and the member?
Yeah. So day to day, well, every day is different. Every day is different because the legislative schedule changes a lot, and the issues that come up change all the time. So you kind of have to be prepared for whatever the day throws at you. You want to make sure that you plan your day, and there's a certain list of things you want to get done, but you also have to account for that unexpected situation that's going to come up. So I think the past year and a half has been a little unusual. But it's part of what makes Capitol Hill such a special place, as such an interesting place to work in, because every day you have a different set of situations. So it's been what's my train of thought? So it has been a privilege to be a chief of staff, and to be kind of managing these situations. You can basically hope for the best and prepare for the worst, kind of thing. So
So, what would you say is your favorite aspect of working on Capitol Hill?
I enjoy that it's fast paced.
Yeah.
I enjoy that every day it's a little different, and I enjoy the fact that we can actually influence these people's lives, whether that is through constituent work. If somebody has a claim, in Puerto Rico with the 2017 hurricanes, we're dealing a lot with FEMA, with Army Corps of Engineers, and then on the legislation as well, having to be able to affect policy and to make things better for our constituents. I think that's the most rewarding aspect. If you wanna, if you are interested in public service and in work on Capitol Hill, never lose focus that you represent the people that elected your member, and that goes first and foremost, besides any political consideration.
That's really impactful. Thank you for sharing that. Can you talk to me about what it's like being one of the few bilingual people on Capitol Hill? Like, I know that, the office is very bilingual, but most of the other offices on Capitol Hill aren't.
Yes. So the good thing about speaking English and Spanish is that you can communicate your message to more people. And I would say not just for the people in Puerto Rico, but also for, nationwide. I think that, being an Hispanic American, I'm very proud that we're seeing more and more Hispanic members and Hispanic staffers. I think there's been a lot of emphasis in, to opportunities like Chile that bring Hispanics to Capitol Hill to get that experience, and they end up in other offices, or in other jobs. So I think we are creating, we're kind of reshifting a little bit in terms of politics and making sure that Capitol Hill is more like America, because there's a lot of Hispanic communities around the world, across the country, that they speak Spanish and that they identify, even if their member doesn't speak Spanish, that they have somebody in their staff that they speak Spanish. Sometimes we'll have other commercial offices asking us for assistance. We have this constituent, they only speak Spanish. Could you help us translate, or could you help us, with their issue? So, you feel like as a resource as well to your colleagues. So I think that's very important as well.
Definitely, definitely. I know recently you were recognized by the Connect app as one of the best mentors on Capitol Hill. And so what advice would you give this next generation of young people, young Hispanics, future global leaders with Chile, looking to start a career in DC?
Do it.
Well, there you go.
Through all my 14 years in Capitol Hill, there's been many times that I have to, I'm afraid of failure, or I'm afraid of taking a challenge or putting myself out there. And that's just gets to your head, right? But I would say you just have to try it. You just have to try it, because more likely than not, you're going to succeed. If not the first time, the second time. But not trying, you're always going to have that regret. So I would say put yourself out there. If you know it's something that you may or may not like, try it anyway. I have to say, like, I am an international relations major, but I've had people in my office and people that I've met with that are not necessarily an international relations major, and they kind of taken the Chile experience or some other sort of internship, or they go to school here in DC and they want to try an internship, or sometimes they do it for school credit and they end up loving it. So I'd say, give it a shot. Don't be afraid of failure. Challenge is good. It's good for you. Because, there's going to be a lot of things in life that you may not always expect. And this experiences kind of prepare you, and you having, that decision to kind of just go ahead and move forward. It's going to better position you in life for other things that may come along your way.
So the skills you acquire on Capitol Hill transfer and make you more marketable in every other arena? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, great. I know last year you were given the Ambassador Award, the Chile Ambassador Award. What did that mean to you?
It's a huge honor. It's a privilege. I first came to learn of Chile in 2011 when I was with Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, being a founding member of Chile. We would always participate in the briefings, host interns, and to me that was very important, because we're talking at a time that now you were able to pay your interns out of your office budget, but back in the day, it was very competitive to be on the Hill and to have these experiences. So we were very privileged to be able to have people who were interested in Chile and who are interested in being placed in our office. So since then, I truly believed in Chile's vision and mission. And throughout my time, I've been able um, to kind of take that in and kind of tell other people, even if they're not in Chile, about the experience and about how they can be a force for change if they, decide to do it. So, being a Chile ambassador previously at Stephen Vermillion awardee, it's a huge honor. Uh, Unfortunately, I did not get to meet Stephen Vermillion, but to be able to be awarded in honor of his legacy and all the work that he did to create Chile and to make Chile what it is today, it's the biggest honor that I have had. So having being the recipient of the ambassador award last year, just further, um, cemented my commitment to Chile and to the younger generations of Hispanic Americans who are trying to make a difference in the world.
Well, it sounds like you're a perfect ambassador for Chile. So thank you for all that you do for us. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience about your trajectory to get to where you are, how to be successful, how to make an impact?
Yeah, I would say, getting your foot in the door is the first step. Doing the internship is probably one of the first good things that you can do. And then you start creating a network of people, whether it is the offices that you're working with, or even further, attending events, just putting yourself out there so that people know who you are and what you're about to. Because your experience in Capitol Hill or even in the public sector um, can lead to other opportunities where you can make a big impact for people.
Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for your time and for everything that you do for Chile and for being such a great person for us all to look up to.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Purple Line. For the latest updates, follow Chile on social media at THECHLI. And you can follow me at EMBENA. Thank you for joining us on The Purple Line.